Good to see you guys, and so sorry that took a while. I was trying to set up a lot of things on my social media and it just was not responding, and I just decided I give up. Because I tried to update on my Instagram that I'm now live, but for some reason my stories are not working, and I just kept getting a lot of updates saying, oh, that basically my Instagram wasn't refreshing. It kept saying that it was updated hours ago, minutes ago, and I'm just like, my story, I just posted a story about announcing that I am live now, but it's just not updating. First it was there, but then it disappeared, so yeah. Instagram is not working with me today, so I kind of just gave up on that, and I'm here. So I see my good friend Susie in the chat, so hi Susie, thank you for coming early. I hope everything is going well for you. I know we were supposed to have a lesson today, but don't worry about it. I'm just happy that you made time for me, so hope all is well with you. We're just gonna go ahead and jump straight to the lesson, but I totally forgot I closed my window here for for my presentation. It works now. I double checked before starting today's stream, so I just hope nothing bad happens while I am uploading this again. So 1 second while I pull up the presentation. Okay. Hopefully this all works. Okay. Fingers crossed that this works. Yes, okay. Let's see if this works. Okay. Hey, it does work. Awesome. So, let's just go ahead and get to my presentation. It's still kind of janky with all of the animations here, but we'll just work with it. So, welcome to session 2 of the Homebody Cafe. The animation's gonna go. Okay, cool. Oops. I don't know what happened here. And then the next page. Alright, so today's stream itinerary, the stream itinerary for today are the language components, language learner profile, tree diagram, and questions. So we're gonna go over some things where it's touching a little bit about my experience as a linguistic expert or linguist expert. And I think it's really important to go over these first before anyone considers pursuing a language, because it's important to know that there are so many things we have to look at when learning a new language. And I may extend some of my experience with, let's say my target language for the time being is French, so while the rest of you guys are learning English. So let's go ahead and move to the next section here. Oops, wrong button. We'll get to that whiteboard in another time. Okay, so the first... Oops, I didn't even go next. Here we are. So our first lesson for today are the language components. So here are a list of language components. So all languages have at least 5 components, but I think, let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't worry about phonetics. It's just under the category of phonology. We'll go into more details for that in a second. So I made this this icon bigger, so hopefully you guys can see it from my screen. If it's too small, I'll go ahead and read it to you guys. So The green ring here is called phonetics, and they define it as speech sounds, which is under the category of phonology. I just don't understand why they decided to write it here when phonology as a whole is the study of sound. So phonemes, they chose a linguistic term here, which we will define in the next couple slides. So technically, don't worry about phonetics because it's under the category of phonology. So this is the first language component. Sorry. The second language component is morphology, which is the words itself. So again, I'll go into more details of what each language component is defined as in the next couple slides, but we'll just read off with whatever's provided in the picture here. And I think it does a good job in just summarizing the overall view or the surface definition of each word. The next row here we have syntax, which is phrases and sentences. Semantics, literal meaning of phrases and sentences. And pragmatics, meaning in context of discourse. So again, I don't know if you guys can see on my screen, but there's a microphone right in front of me here, so it's covering like half of the screen for me, so I have to lean forward like this just to see what's around it, so don't mind what I'm doing. Alright, so we're gonna break this down with each category. So the first thing we want to acknowledge regarding every language in the world, the first one is phonology. So this is the study of sound. So based on the chart, we saw what they said was phonetics listed underneath phonology. And phonetics basically means what we say. So basically our pronunciation. So if we say something, it's called phonetics. So that's the words we pronounce. But if we are the listener, they would be called phonemes. So it's basically sounds that we hear. So the reason why we have words that are very similar and why they're distinguished is just to show one person is the producer of the sound and one is the receiver of the sound. So if that helps. If I hear someone say phonetics, it's the pronunciation. Someone says phonemes, it's what we hear. The base of the word here is phone, which basically means a distinct sound. So for example, if you say the short I sound in American English, like eh versus e. So there's a very distinct sound between these two that I'm pronouncing at the moment. So eh, e, these are called phones. So they're distinct sounds. The fact that I'm pronouncing it means I'm producing the phonetics. And for you guys who are listening, you're listening to the phoneme. Next, I did decide to add this vocabulary here. This is called an allophone. Allophone is a variation of phoneme that doesn't change word meaning. So, in other words, to break this down, it's how people pronounce things differently without affecting what the word is. So, a common example would be like the American pronunciation of water, right? So, I want to drink some water. My water's in here. But if I were a British person, I would pronounce it as water. So that would be considered an allophone. So it's still the same word. There's no change in the meaning itself. It's just we're saying things slightly different from each other. Allophone, I would say, is more distinct in terms of like how were you brought up to say a certain word. So I think in terms of common words that I hear where people have different allophones is the word comfortable. So I'm gonna type it in the chat so you can see the spelling. Actually, no, I can actually use my board here. Why not? So the word I'm saying is this one. Also, let me just write the date for today. Today is March 8. So we have the word comfortable, right? So that is the word we're looking at. So there are a few people who pronounce it as comfortable, and there's also people who pronounce it as comfortable. So again, we have, I'm just gonna write it in just blatant English instead of the IPA, which we'll talk about later. So we have comfortable, right? So they're pronouncing the OR there. Or there might be people who might even say comfortable, right? So notice what happened to the OR is that we dropped it. So we say comfortable instead of comfortable. So this is a good example of, I guess, allophone in a way. Although I would say in terms of linguistics, we're kind of strict on what allophones are. So again, the perfect example would be water, right? Because we're isolating only one sound. So we have wa. So I'm gonna say wa with a W. Ah. Water. And then there's also water, or like the British one. So as you can see, allophone is more of that distinction between basically just usually one sound. But I feel like it could also be shown in the example of saying the word comfortable versus comfortable. So it really just depends on where you're from. Also, I think another example, if it helps, is when someone says the word for. Actually fourth, right? So like the fourth floor, I had this one teacher who would pronounce it using I think a New York accent. She would say fourth floor, or a fourth floor. I can't remember how she, this is the fourth floor, something like that. Sorry, I'm really terrible at accents, but so you get the point. So fourth floor versus fourth floor. So that could be an example of allophones, and also distinguish this accent there too. Hi! Wow, Claudia, you're here! Great to have you! Alright, so that is the study on what is phonology, the study of sound. And for this lesson, you do not have to memorize all of these vocabulary. I'm just giving you a lot of information that I learned in my linguistic program, so in case you come across them, you know what they are. But it is not mandatory that you should know all of these, so you should be fine. Okay. The second component is morphology. So morphology is the study of word formation. So we have morphemes, like this. Morpheme is the smallest meaningful word, or AKA the root word. Good morning to you, Claudia. I think it was, let me see if I remember. Salamat pagi? Yes, if I remember. Ah, thank you. Thank you for following me. Do you love my icon? Such elegance. Yes. Salamat pagi. Here we have, so going back to the topic, we have morphology, the study of word formation. So we have morpheme being the smallest meaningful word or root word. So for example, you could say boot, B-O-O-T. So I'll write it on my little board here as an example. So we could say boot. Okay, let's just start with that. Morpheme, right? We have the word boot, which is the base word. Or they call it the root word. So morpheme, basically it's just one word that has some sort of definition to it, and it exists in the English dictionary. So that's what morpheme basically is. It's just it's a word that means something, and it's just a root word. Then we come across with words called affixes. So this is the umbrella term for combining prefix and suffix. So prefix are basically words that are added before the root word, and then suffixes are words that are added after. Okay, let me just see if I said it right. So prefix is before the word, suffix is after. So we're gonna go back and look at this. So if I say reboot, right? Re at the front is the suffix. If I say booted, this is the suffix. Oh wait, I mixed it up, my bad. Reboot is prefix, booted is suffix. There you go. So it is possible for some words that will have both combinations, so you can actually say Sorry, this thing is just acting up. You can actually say rebooted, right? This word actually exists in English. So in this case, we have our base word or the root, whatever you want to call it. Then you have your suffix and you have your prefix, right? So that's basically what morpheme is in terms of language component. All languages have this where we add a affix before or after the word. So that's basically what morphology is. It's the ability to just put things together in a word and it creates some sort of meaningful word in there. And then basically, if we were to put it under like language learning, morphology would be more about vocabulary. So this is where you would be memorizing a lot of words when you're learning a language. All right, so we have arrived to our third language component, which is called syntax. So syntax is a study of words and morphemes combined to make larger units such as phrases and sentences. So we know what this is already. So we have morphemes, which is the base word. Words and morphemes, so putting them all together, we are trying to make something meaningful, like saying, oh, hi, my name is Hannah, for example. So that is a sentence. That's exactly what syntax is. It's just putting them together. It's just putting them together, and it's also known as basically the grammar point. Yeah, the grammar point of language learning. Sorry, I'm like stuttering over my words. In terms of grammar, though, it's a combination of both morphology and syntax. So we do have a word for it in linguistics, and we call it morphosyntax. So it's just a combination of the two names. Because after all, grammar is just, we're learning about how to put words together. We're trying to identify patterns in grammar and also patterns in the morphemes. That's really all there is to it. And once you understand the grammar of a language, it's actually quite predictable. So that's why it's really helpful to know the grammar and understanding the morphology and the syntax. But yeah, we'll go more into that as we continue our lessons from here. But I don't think I'll be covering a lot of grammar today, so maybe next week I'll go ahead and cover that. All right, so moving on here, syntax, we will be talking about the tree diagram today, as you guys have noticed in the schedule. So in the tree diagram, we will be looking at noun phrases and verb phrases. Let me see, 1 second here. Okay. All right, so next we have semantics. So what's interesting about semantics is that I personally have not pursued a course that goes into details about what semantics are, but semantics is the study of meaning in language. So basically, it's just when you put words together, what do you understand from it? So this does require understanding words and phrases. So this is otherwise known as you have to know your grammar really well. You have to know the syntax. You have to have a general knowledge. So even though you don't know what it is in English, you can actually translate it over from your first language. So you do have general knowledge based on your first native language. And then, of course, you also require or you need real-world experience. So again, it's not difficult as long as you have real-life experience and you can translate it over from your native language to the language that you're trying to learn. Okay, so next, we're gonna go a little bit in detail for semantics. So like I mentioned, I didn't really go into much research when I was in university for semantics. I focused more on phonology and syntax, so I kind of lucked out on this. But I am gonna do a lot of research if I were to pursue semantics in my live streams in the future. But anyways, I digress. We're gonna talk about at least 3 types of semantics based on my research today. So the first we're looking at is formal semantics, which is the study of grammatical meaning in natural language. So as it says, we're just looking at we're focusing more on I cannot talk to you today, sorry. We're focusing on the meaning of words and phrases based on the grammatical structure. So for example, I did provide 2 sentences here, and these sentences are actually called ambiguous sentences. So I will go into detail for this. So the first sentence is, he looked at the dog with one eye. So based on looking at the sentence alone, and we're just checking for the formal semantics. So formal being grammar, right? We're looking at the meaning of words and phrases based on the grammatical structure. So based on this sentence, and we're looking at grammatically, we do not know who has one eye, right? If we look at it again, he looked at the dog with one eye. Who has one eye? He, the subject, or the dog has one eye, right? So if we're just looking at it based on grammar, we cannot distinguish who has it, because by saying with one eye, it doesn't clearly indicate if the subject, he, was looking at the dog when he has like one eye, like his eyes closed, like maybe he's looking through a telescope or something, or maybe he has like an eye surgery, that's why he only has one eye and he's looking at the dog. Or are we looking at the dog that only has one eye? So that's why it's called an ambiguous sentence, because it's not specific. We don't know what it is. This is also the same at the second. This is very similar to the second example here, where we have Jack Sparrow saw the pirate with the telescope. So again, in this ambiguous example, we do not know who has a telescope. Are we talking about Jack Sparrow who saw the pirate while Jack Sparrow was using the telescope? Or Jack Sparrow happened to see a pirate that had a telescope with him? So again, that's a perfect example of formal semantics, because we're judging the sentence based on the grammatical structure and what we understand from it. Because I use these 2 sentences as an example, it's just to show you clearly how easy it is to misunderstand people in English. I cannot say on behalf of other languages because I don't have enough experiences, but for you guys who also have a native language, maybe you have something similar, and I would love to hear more about it if you want to share in the chat room. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting just to show you guys how easy it is to misunderstand. So yeah, communication is a problem in English, especially in informal English. All right, so the next type of semantics is conceptual semantics, the study of words at their core. So the focus is on universal definitions of words before taken into context. So what this basically means is that whatever word is used, whether that vocabulary word has double meaning, can really affect how we see the sentence. So this is a really good example that I found online, and it says, "You look really hot." We don't really know what the context is, right? Because we're just looking at the word hot by itself. Without context, we can assume 2 things are happening. You might say, "Oh, you look really hot," as if to say it as hot is being used as a type of compliment on someone's physical appearance. Or maybe they say, "Oh, you look really hot," as if to make a comment of how a person's face is really, really red, maybe, and they look unwell. So maybe someone who's very feverish. So we don't really know what's going on in this context because we don't know what happened before or after it. And that's an example of a conceptual semantics, because we're just looking at the word hot and we're trying to find a universal definition for it without looking at the context first. So that's the point of why I chose this as an example. And the final type of semantic is lexical semantics. So this is the study of word meanings. Sorry, I misspelled that. Establishes meanings to word based on their relationship to other words in the sentences and their compositional structure. So this is where I forgot to write a little note here. This is where I would consider lexical semantics more of like reading reading the vocab, not reading the vocab, sorry, reading the sentences around the vocabulary word. So again, let's use the same example from the previous one about you look hot, right? So if I were to say the situation is, I tell my friend Claudia, I say, Claudia, let's go to the mall, let's go shopping for your dress. And she comes out wearing a new dress, and I tell her, wow, you look hot, you know? We know the context now that I'm using the word hot for complimenting her appearance, that she looks really good, right? But if I were to go in a different context, let's say I visit Claudia and I go to her house, and I'm just visiting her, and she's hosting and having me over, and we're just catching up. And then sometime into our conversation, I kind of notice she's not looking so well. She might be sweating a little bit. Her face is getting red. I might interrupt her and say, oh, Claudia, are you okay? You look so hot. So if I were to say it in that context, now I understand it as, or she would also understand it as, I'm commenting about her health, that maybe she's not doing okay. So as you can see, lexical semantics is how the word is being used in relationship to the context around it, I believe. If I'm wrong for this, I apologize, because semantics is still quite new for me. Okay, and the final component for language, for all languages, is the pragmatics. This is definitely the advanced or more fluent level for learners. And I think this one comes with experience over time, right? So pragmatics is the study of how context contributes to the meaning. So again, with the example that I mentioned about, oh, you look hot, that is where context is important. So this one evaluates how human language is utilized in social interactions, as well as the relationship between the interpreter and the interpret. So what basically means here is that if I say something, there's probably an unspoken, or implied message between me and whoever I'm interacting with. So for example, wow, this room sure is cold. So again, let's go back to the context of where I talked about Claudia. If I go to her place and I'm like, wow, Claudia, this place is really cold, the message that I'm telling her pragmatically is that you probably should turn on the heater or maybe turn off the AC because I'm freezing. I'm starting to get cold. I might even be telling her, oh, do you have a jacket that I can borrow? Right? So that's what pragmatics is. It's just kind of giving a social cue, or you're trying to make a context, or you're trying to send a message that's implied that you're not feeling comfortable in this kind of situation. So that's the best way I can talk about pragmatics. And this one definitely comes with, it does come with a lot of experience, which is why I would consider this as an advanced or fluent level for English learners, because it just comes with observation and how people use it. I think Friends is a good example of collecting some experiences for pragmatics. I believe even the sarcasm is part of pragmatics too, right? So if you were to be sarcastic in your tone and say, oh my god, I wish I was as popular as you, that's a very sarcastic tone. You can tell that I don't mean it, I really don't care. So there is an implied meaning that I'm just saying the opposite of what I'm feeling the opposite of what I'm saying, if that makes sense to you. So I feel like sarcasm could fall under the category of pragmatics. So again, it just comes with experience and learning how that goes. But yeah, it's kind of hard to teach the last two. So semantics and pragmatics are actually quite difficult for me to teach because I haven't really touched those areas, let alone learn them more in depth in college. But as time progresses, I will do my research, so we'll be fine. Okay, so the next point for today's itinerary is to learn about the language learner profile. So something I learned about the language learner profile is that it's super helpful to a lot of language learner, including myself. So I invented the word language learner profile from my previous job, and I found that it was really useful and a lot of my students really liked it. So that's why I'm just bringing back this this topic and method into today's stream. So the purpose of what a language learner profile is that it's some sort of writing diary or journal, and I have to stress how important it is to have a diary or journal, something to record yourself, right? Even if you choose to take a video to record yourself or record yourself through audio, etc., doesn't matter. Anything that you can record, right? Because this is so important when you're learning a language. It's also a milestone, growth, or accomplishment recorder. So again, it's just supposed to hold some sort of history of what your progress has been in learning the language. So whatever you learned that day or that week or whatever you choose to write in there, it's meant to show you some sort of growth. And a lot of times when you're learning a language, it's really hard to see how much you've improved as a learner, not unless you have some sort of tangible item to show you that you have improved, which is why in most cases, whenever I have private lessons, I tell my students to either have a journal or record themselves, because they have something to compare their growth from where they stood and started as a beginner versus to how much they progressed within weeks, months, years time. And then another purpose for the language learner profile is that it's a really good motivator. When you start learning a language or when you advance to higher levels in a language, there are moments where you will feel frustrated with what you're learning. Sometimes it's really hard for the grammar lesson to stick with you or to accept the rule for what it is. And we need to have those moments where we need to motivate ourselves. Like, what's the purpose of learning this language? Why am I even learning it in the first place? Or what's keeping me going, for example? So we need some sort of motivator for that. And again, it also doubles as a reminder to remind us as to why we're still pursuing this journey. Because after all, learning a language is a lifetime commitment. Language is always changing. It changes every single day, especially informal, like the informal aspect of the language. So it's really important to remind yourself as to why you are pursuing and committing to learning the language that you're learning. Okay, so what should be included? It really depends on you, on what you want to write in there. I typically tell my students to write their name, their age. Those two are optional. You don't have to, since it is your journal. But if you want to do it and decorate, by all means, go right ahead. Let me see if I do have an example for mine. Let's see. I don't know if it's here. Yeah, I have it somewhere else. 1 second. Let me go get it for you. So I will be right back. Haha, I found it. Okay, so for example, I have this little journal here. And there's actually a section I did try to dedicate to just talking about myself here. So for example, I am a huge stationery addict. I don't know if you can see it. So as you can see, I personalized my little space here. I talked about myself, I put pictures of myself, and talked about my vision as a learner, or at least in this example, I use one for my teaching experience. So I'm someone who's very, very creative. So if you want to go all out and just make something creative with stationery, making a booho journal, whatever you call it, please go do whatever you want to do. So it's really up to you how you want to do that. I think in terms of age, you don't have to mention it, but if you want to, it's up to you. I would typically do mine because I forget my maths. So if I were to recall, when did I start learning a certain language, I wouldn't remember it. So I typically would write my age. But again, it's optional. It's really up to you. It's your journal. Starting date, definitely. I would say this is mandatory because it's super helpful to see where you started and to see where you stand days, weeks, months, years later, and compare how much you've grown as a learner. And then, of course, we need to talk about goals for learning the language. So I would at least give yourself, depending on how available you are in your schedule, if you're busy, I would not recommend going more than 5 or maybe 3. But if you have the time for it, I would say you can go as much, have as much goals as you want, but I would not recommend overwhelming yourself. So I would say stick to 3 as a minimum, 5 maybe max. No more than, I don't know if you would go for 10. It's really up to you. But anyways, the next point is, why do you want to learn this language? And I feel like this is such an important question because there will be times where, again, you're gonna ask yourself, why am I even learning this language? For what purpose am I gonna use it? If I'm just learning it for fun, then where else am I going to extend my knowledge here to somewhere, right? Because learning a language is very difficult, and it can be very difficult if you don't know exactly what you're going to use it for. So I think this is really good to answer and provide a very, very long answer for, because you will need it on days where you don't have the motivation anymore. And if you read your answers, it motivates you again. The next point here, I wrote motivators or motivational triggers. So basically, this little section is to remind you what triggers you to learn the language. So in my personal experience, if I'm learning French, for example, my triggers are Miraculous Ladybug, which is this animation show that came out 8 years ago. And I typically like to watch it in the French dub. So when I hear and watch the show in French, that's where my trigger comes in as to why I want to learn French. Another one for me is that I plan to go to France as my post-grad present to myself. So that's another reason why I want to relearn French, is because I'm prepared to communicate when I arrive there, even though my French is going to be so bad, but it's okay. As long as I know how to survive and manage my way through there, then cool, I know what to do. So you need to have some sort of motivator to remind you to come back and learn the language, right? And if you're someone who has children, maybe you think that you want to learn English to help give them an opportunity when they're much older. That's why you're learning the language, and it also influences them to learn from you. Then that's another motivator, you know? So everyone's answer is different. We don't have to have the same answer. So it's important to remember why you're learning a certain language and who it's for. And especially what's most important is, how does it benefit you, right? Okay. All right. I don't know why the image is not uploading. But creating SMART goals. I don't know why the image is broken, but let's see if it pops up on the next page. Here. So what does SMART stand for? We have S is for specific. So you want to make sure your goals are focused and identify a tangible outcome. Tangible means that it's something you can feel, you can see. Without the specifics, your goal runs the risk of being too vague to achieve. Being more specific helps you identify what you want to achieve. You should also identify what resources you are going to leverage to achieve successfully. So an example of like a specific goal would be like, oh, I will know how to ask questions about how much a product is, where can I find the product, for example. So if you're looking at language that's related to shopping, you want to look at those specific types of languages that you will use. That would be considered specific. Measurable. So you should have some clear definitions of success. This will help you to evaluate achievement and also progress. This component often answers how much or how many and highlights how you'll know you achieved your goal. So measurable could be like if you are writing in a diary or journal and you're also identifying how many in your goals you're creating. So again, if we're talking about shopping, then you would want to measure, to make it measurable, you would say, oh, I will be able to say something, these 3 sentences, and I will be able to pronounce them accurately. And I will show that through recording myself, through typing, I don't know, writing in my journal, etc. Stuff like that. Something that you could measure and you can actually see something from it. A is for attainable. It also means achievable or actionable. I saw a lot of definitions for A, but overall it should be attainable. Your goal should be challenging but still reasonable to achieve. Reflecting on this component can reveal any potential barriers that you may need to overcome to realize success. Outline the steps you're planning to take to achieve your goal. So basically, it means it's possible. But something that's attainable is that it can happen at this moment, right? So that's why having a SMART goal, it has to be very realistic. So attainable is just another way of saying that it is possible to do within a certain time frame and whatever the goals are listed. Relevance. So this is about getting real with yourself and ensuring what you're trying to achieve is worthwhile to you. Determining if this is aligned with your values and if it is a priority focus for you, this helps you answer the why. So relevance is more about your personal interest. So why are you learning this? Is it relevant to your value? Is it relevant to your interest? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to learn something that just doesn't mean anything to you, right? Like it's not worth learning if it's something that you're not going to use. So that would be just a waste of time. So don't force yourself to learn something that you're not interested in. For example, if you're not a medical major or engineer, why would you learn about medical engineer, right? So really, you want to pursue language that you will use. With time, if you were to look into, let's say, some medical background, maybe because you're inspired by a TV show, anime, K-drama, anything really, then maybe you would pursue that. Hey, hi, Simply Gabriel. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Next, we do have time for time bound. So every goal needs a target date, something that motivates you to really apply the focus and discipline necessary to achieve it. This answers when it's important to set a realistic time frame to achieve your goal to ensure you don't get discouraged. So I would always recommend at least 1 week, I think is a really good idea. You can achieve a lot of things in 7 days. So I recommend 7 days is enough, maybe 5 too. If you're very, I guess if you're super proactive and you really, really want to commit yourself to learning a language every day, making it once a day would be a little too overwhelming, but that means your measurable goal would have to decrease. So maybe you would have to commit to 1 goal a day. So that's how you have to set up your goals. These are your SMART goals. All right. So going back here, specific again is about the topic. What do you want to cover? So again, our topic or our example for this topic was figuring out language that you would use when you're going shopping, right? Then you would say measurable, you'd write it in a journal, you would talk about how many goals you would write there. Is it achievable, attainable? Is it possible to do within a certain time frame? Or are you able to achieve it in the overall? Relevant is it related to your interest or topic, right? You don't want to pursue anything that you're not interested in because it won't stick, and also you will feel disinterested. And then finally, time bound, I would say at least try once, like a week. 1 week is plenty, I would say. Okay. All right, next. Cool. Okay, so we are looking at tree diagrams. So this is a large chunk that I have from my linguistic program, and I'm gonna ask you to you don't have to memorize the structure of how it's gonna look like per se, but I do want you to look at the syntax. So basically the order of how words work. You will definitely need to pay attention to that just to make your life easier. So we're looking at tree diagrams. So we're looking at what is called constituents. A very brief statement of what constituents are. They're basically the parts of the tree. That's all I'm gonna simplify it as. So we have markings like S stands for sentence, noun phrases NP, verb phrases VP, and then noun phrases. So we have different types of noun phrases. We can have a proper noun. So this includes the names, titles, etc. So an example would be me, Miss Hannah. We would have a determiner plus a noun. We're going to talk about determiners in the next couple slides, so you'll see a lot of examples for them. In this one sentence, the most common is an article. So you would say the teacher. Noun is teacher, determiner is noun. Then we have a determiner plus an adjective plus noun. So not every sentence has an adjective, so that's why I just added adjective here to show you another example of what would be considered a noun phrase. Oh my gosh. Hi. Thank you for following me, Gabriel. Gosh, that sound effect just startled me. Okay, so we have the plus young plus teachers. Then we also have the preposition, the PP plus NP. So we have, for example, to the beach. So noun phrase, again, is just determiner plus noun. But I simplified it here for you guys. We're going to look at what kinds are considered as determiners. So determiners are usually the word before a generic noun, right? So we have articles, a and the. We have demonstrative, this, these, that, those. Quantifiers, some, all, every, many, much, a lot, etc. Numbers, 1, 2, 3, going up, wherever. And then we have possessive. My, your, his, her, its, our, their. So in most nouns in English, they typically have a determiner before it. And a lot of times what I've noticed working with a lot of students is the absence of determiners. So the only times that there are no article is when it is an uncountable noun. So for example, school, like I go to school every day, or I go to school every day. So notice I don't say I go to the school or I go to a school. I just say I go to school. So the determiner is absent because it's supposed to imply that it's the same school that I attend every single day. Not unless I suddenly change topic. So if I were to, for example, if I were to have a conversation where it's not related to my everyday, thank you. So no worries, I'm your old coworker from CSULB. I just saw you had a Twitch channel. Keep doing what you're doing. Aw, Gabriel, thank you. Or Gabrielle, right? I think I remember you. I think I do. Gabrielle, thank you. Let's see. Are you Gabby by any chance? Because if you are, I miss you. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. And thank you for stopping by. So yes, another thing that I noticed is that when we talk about certain things like going to work, going to school, notice that I'm not saying a and or the. Yes, you are the Lithuanian gal. Oh my god, yes. Girl, we need to catch up, please. We need to catch up. It's been a very long time. Thank you for stopping by and just like showing your support. I'm really happy to see you. Yeah, so I hope I can see you again. Sending you lots of love, good vibes your way. Let's see here. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. Yeah, so when we're trying to imply that there's some sort of habit, specifically for school and work, we tend to drop the article. That's why. But if we were to mention something else, like a different school or a different work, that's when we would add an article. So if I tell you, oh, I'm going to a school later today, I'm not saying I'm going to the school that I usually go to. I'm going to a different school for like maybe for a short time or visitation. Love your way too. Sorry for distracting you. No, don't apologize. I'm just really happy. Just thank you. Like it really means a lot that I got to see you and hear from you. So thank you, Gabby. I love you lots. So yeah, that's an example of, I would say, would it be uncountable? I guess uncountable in that aspect. But then lexically or semantically, it means that we're implying that it's the same thing that we're visiting, etc. We also have uncountable nouns like, for example, hair. So we don't say, yeah, you can't really count hair, right? So you would say, grab the hair. It's just, I'm trying to find instead of hair, I'm just gonna say sand. Sand might be better. Like, grab sand, for example. You don't hear me say, maybe I might even say grab the sand. Grab sand. Interesting. Okay, I can see that both of them do work. It's like really hitting me hard on like how I'm using it. Like grab the sand versus grab sand. Grab the sand on the way here, grab sand on the way here. Okay, I see what's going on. Okay, so I think it helps if I write it on paper. I apologize. Maybe it'll help here. So with the context of sand, right? So we're gonna say grab the sand on the way here. Versus grab sand on the way here. So we're looking at two contexts, right? Oops, that's not the one I'm trying to circle. It's this one. There we go. So when we're trying to say grab the sand on the way here, we're specifying where the sand is from, right? So this is specific. So for example, if you live in, let's say I live in Long Beach, right? So if I were to determine where I could find which sand I should bring to you for some specific reason, for some odd reason that you want specific sand, you would tell me, oh, grab the sand from Long Beach on the way here before you come to my place, right? So we're being very specific. And let's say I live in Huntington. Maybe that's where I should clarify. So let's say you want the sand from Huntington Beach, but I live in, no, you want the sand from Long Beach, but I live in Huntington. So they're two different beaches. So you're telling me to grab the sand on the way here. So you're implying on a previous sentence before this that we discussed it as Long Beach sand. But here, this is the assumption that you know that I live in Huntington Beach, right? So this one to you, you don't care what kind of sand I get. So you're gonna tell me, grab sand on the way here. So by saying that, you're not specifically telling me what to do, so it's not specific. And it also implies any sand will do. Yeah. So does that make sense? Seeing like why there's countable and uncountable nouns. So that's just very brief. We'll talk more about that in the near future, but that's just an example of what the difference of using the or the absence of happens here. We cannot say grab a sand. So if you say, let me scroll down. Grab a sand on the way here. A just doesn't work because sand is generally plural, right? It's uncountable. We can't really count it. So the only time we can use an article is the. That's like the only time I can think of as well. But yeah, I digress. That's a pretty brief example of articles with countable and uncountable. Okay. Then we have, again, demonstratives. We have quantifiers, numbers, and possessive. So rule of thumb, most or majority of nouns need to have something before it. And in most cases, it's articles. Yeah, but I mean, we have different variations. You can say these sand or some sand. We have 3 sands from different beaches or their sand, for example. So as you can see, I'm just using any type of word from these types of determiners. Okay, now we're moving on to verb phrases. I'm trying to keep it very simple for now because it just goes like English words or English sentences are quite crazy, but it just helps to have a base idea for now. Maybe in the future I will go into more depth of tree diagrams. But so here we're looking at VPs. So basically it's a verb plus a noun phrase. So for example, you can say like Derek bought the ice cream. So I'm just focusing on the verb here. It's bought, and then the noun phrase. We have the article or determiner, and then plus ice cream, which is the noun phrase. Here we have verb plus adjective, so you can say are easy. Completing the tests are easy, for example. So you can actually end the sentence with an adjective. It doesn't have to always be a noun, I would say. So here are some example sentences of tree diagrams, so you can see how it's being branched apart. We talked about what S is, so that's the sentence. It goes down into noun phrase, and then VP, the verb phrase. We have the determiner, we have the noun dog, the verb ate, and then the bone, noun phrase. And if you need me to go bigger, I believe I have a bigger picture for it here. If we were to write this down on paper, I think what I would like to look at in terms of if you're studying this. So we have the dog ate the bone, right? The dog ate the bone. So if this is the case, I think what you would want to do is just identify where the verb is, right? So we have the verb right here. And usually it's just, I just want to put a slash mark in between. So now we know our noun phrase, right? And then all of this here is your verb phrase. So if we were to go into more details, we know the is the determiner or the article. Dog is the noun. Ate is the verb. Then we have the, again, being the determiner or article. And this would be the noun. Okay. So that's basically what I want you guys to focus on if it comes down to breaking down the words and identifying their word class. So this part here would be called your word class, because you're trying to identify what grammatical structure they are. So that's all you really have to focus on. What I have provided on my presentation, though, is what I see as a linguist. So these are called constituent trees or the tree diagram. Okay, so we have our second example here. We have, sorry for it being blurry, it says the children put the toy in the box. So I'm gonna write this down on my notes. The children put the toy in the box. Okay. So I'm gonna guide you through this. Again, we have our entire sentence, which is why it's marked with S. Then we identified where the verb is, which is put. So that's why there's this huge separation between them in their little clusters. We have the noun phrase. The determiner is the noun is children. We have our verb phrase. So this is where we have 3 branches happening here. Don't worry about this again, but I just want you guys to see what's going down here. We have the verb by itself, put. Noun phrase, so we have our connection here, the toy, determiner, and noun. Then we have our preposition, right? So we have our preposition word, which is in, and then your noun phrase, the box. Okay, so I wrote it down here. So identify where the verb is. So we have put, right? Put, that division between them. We now have identified our noun phrase. Then here, this entire part will be your verb phrase. Okay, so if we're gonna classify them, the is determiner, children is noun. We're gonna separate verb here. Notice the toy. So I'm gonna put a little note here just so it helps you see that there's some sort of pattern going on. the toy, we have determiner plus noun. In is the preposition. And then again, we have the box, which is the noun phrase. So the is determiner plus noun. Okay. So as you can see, as there is a pattern going on when you're following the syntax of English, and it's pretty much the same, I think, for most simple sentences. Yeah, I would say in these sentences that you can see here, it's the SVO. Subject, verb, object, right? So we have our subject, which is the very first part here. Well, maybe let me just do that here. Yep. So the noun phrase is your subject. Our verb is right here. The object is this entire part here. We have our preposition plus a noun phrase. Yeah. So you can see, seeing it put all together in this example. Okay, next. Whoops, let's go back to... Alright, so we have our first example. We have the tall boy spilled his milk. We'll do this together. So the tall boy spilled his milk. So what do we want to do first here? The first thing we should do is identify the verb, which is spilled. And we need to divide it here. So we have our noun phrase right here. Okay. So actually I should move it to the other side. 1 second. And I should move this down. There we go. So this entire group here is your noun phrase. This entire group here is your verb phrase. Yes? All right. So we have the is your determiner, right? Tall is your adjective. And boy is your noun. So we have our little trio here. The tall boy. Then we have spilled, which is verb. We have his and milk. We have our determiner, which is your possessive, and milk as your noun. If I were to create this as the tree diagram, I'll just show you as an example here. S would divide into NP and VP. NP would be divided into 3 branches here. We have our determiner, our adjective, and our noun. And then we have the tall boy. VP would be divided as V and NP. NP because I recognize determiner and the noun together. V is spilled. And then this would be the determiner plus the noun, his milk. Okay. So this second part down here is for linguistics. I was drilled to memorize this during my undergrad, so I see it like this. But for you guys, all you really have to look at is just this part here. Focus on this one. Okay. So if we were to compare our answers, there you go. Should be exactly the same. So the tall boy spilled his milk. All right. Next, we have tree structures are very easy. I'm gonna write this down first. Tree structures are very easy. Okie dokie. Alright, so again, we need to get our verb here. We have are. Tree structures are your noun phrase, also known as your subject. Are very easy is your VP. So tree structures. These are nouns. That's all you really need to know. These are both nouns. Nouns and noun. Okay. We have are very easy. Verb. Very. What did I write this as? I think it's I don't recall that we covered this during my undergrad, but I think it's called a degree. And then easy would be your adjective. So as long as you know degree just means like, oh, what level of, like, very easy, right? It's like you're trying to emphasize that the simplicity of doing the diagram here. And if you guys just want to have fun and attempt doing the linguistic tree, again, we need to start with S for sentence. NP versus VP, it will always be this way for English. Our VP is split into N and N, so tree, diagram. Oh, sorry, tree diagrams. Is it tree structures or diagrams? Yeah, tree structures. Tree structures. V. Try that again. V is R. Then we have, let's see, which one is this one? Very easy. I would say adjective. Maybe it's an adjective phrase. Don't worry about the ADJP. I think it's on my notes. ADJP, adjective phrase. So we have the degree. And then we have the adjective itself. So the degree is very, and an adjective is easy. So the tree structures are very easy. Oops, I forgot to open the window. Okay. Okay, so tree structures are very easy. Yep. And then this is what it looks like enlarged. So as you can see, there is a pattern going on here, and as long as you get used to the pattern of these tree diagrams, it's actually really useful in understanding how English is put together. So for example, if you know a vocabulary is a noun, for example, you can actually plug it in to the parts of the sentence and you can build something out of that. So that's a cool thing about language. It's like a puzzle piece. You can swap them as long as you know how to use them. All right, so this one, I decided to include ambiguous sentences. So I wanted to show what it looks like using a tree diagram to emphasize and actually show why we have a difficult time identifying these sentences. So let me see if I can pull it up here. Let me see. He looked at the dog with one eye. Okay, let's do the first one. So we have he already being divided here. We have our noun phrase, and then we have everything else being VP. So we have our sentence divided here. So we have NP becomes proper noun, and it's he. The proper noun or is, I'm trying to remember the word for it. My English is like everywhere right now. not a proper noun. I totally forgot what it's called, guys. I'm so sorry. It's so gonna bother me. What was it called? What was it called? Pronoun, that's the word. I can't believe I forgot about it. My bad. I should also write it on the list and update it. So, pronoun here. So you can actually say pro or pro-n just to indicate that. So you have a pronoun, then you have your VP, and we're gonna divide it as looked, verb with looked. We have preposition, I believe, here. And then this is going to become, the preposition word is at NP. See, there's two things going on. So this is where it's all going to branch differently. So noun phrase can become also another preposition phrase. I will show this in a second. So the first NP becomes determiner, noun, the dog. Preposition is P with determiner, or a noun phrase here. With one. Determiner is one. Noun is I. Okay. So we have our first part here. And as far as I remember, there's another way to make this tree. It's exactly the same, but something goes differently here. Sorry, you're gonna see me struggle for a second. It's been a long time. What's the other VP? Oh, I can't make it bigger. Subject, noun phrase, VP. Let me see. Okay, I see it now. VP and then preposition here. So what happens is this can become V plus at the dog, preposition here. At, oh sorry, looked. And then the preposition. I'm gonna make this branch even further. Position. With one eye. I don't know if this helps to see it visually. Okay. So, you might be questioning, what the heck did I just do? Like, what's going on? What is going on here? So we're looking at the sentence here. He looked at the dog with one eye, right? So linguistically speaking, why did I create two types of diagram here, or like two types of trees here? So the reason why there's two types is to indicate two things. We can say, let's see. Let me see if I remember this. He looked at the dog with one eye. I think, Gabby, if you're still here, correct me if I'm wrong. So Gabby's my colleague and she was also in the linguistic program with me. So if I believe correctly here, by putting this tree here all together, so notice the structure. He looked at the dog with one eye. This is telling me that the dog has one eye. So this tells me the dog has one eye. Right? But if I look at this sentence down here, he looked at the dog with one eye. The fact that it's separated goes to show he has one eye. I believe that's what it is. But that's basically why I made two structures. It's just to show you, depends on how do I separate the sentences, it can tell me who has the feature of one eye. So if I put the dog notice here in preposition, I separated he looked. So these two would be associated with each other. But if I put this under one gigantic preposition phrase, at the dog with one eye, this is telling me the dog has one eye because they're all associated under one umbrella, right? Does that make sense? And then the second part here, because I separated the verb phrase here, we're looking at he looked at the dog. This is one umbrella already, like they're all bunched together under the VP. And then under this preposition phrase, it becomes with one eye. It starts to indicate that the subject, he, is the one that has one eye. And that is the problem that is called ambiguous sentences. Yeah, English sucks at times. So that's what it is with tree diagrams. And that's a perfect example of ambiguous sentence. There is one more, so if you don't mind, I will do that as well. The second sentence here, we have Jack Sparrow saw the pirate with the telescope. Let me see if I have enough pages. Okay, I'll do the next page with this. So Jack Sparrow saw the pirate with the telescope. Okay. And we are gonna go ahead and look at the sentence here. So again, the first step you want to do is identify the verb, then put that slash in there. So we have Jack Sparrow being the NP. This entire phrase here is the VP. So to see this visually, linguistically, the first tree I'm gonna make is this, the S here. And we're dividing it into NP and VP. Jack Sparrow is a proper noun, so it's going to be prop N, and you're going to say Jack and Sparrow. Okay. VP, so we have two things going on here. Let's first separate V by itself. So we say the verb is saw, and then the other part of VP is the pirate with the telescope. It's going to be NP. So this noun phrase is going to be divided into another noun phrase and the preposition phrase. Because we have the determiner. Actually, let me just branch it out more. We have the determiner and the noun, the and pirate. The preposition here is he and P. P is with, and P is the telescope. Oh, it looks like I ran out of room. Let me just move this. Okay. NP. Determiner. The telescope. So that's one tree diagram. This is the second one. We have our NP, which is your proper noun. Nothing changes here. We have our VP, and what we're gonna divide this into is VP. So the difference here, basically, actually, I'll deal with that afterwards. So we have VP plus preposition. So we have VP divides into V and NP. What was the sentence again? Jack Sparrow saw? Was it saw? Yeah. Jack Sparrow saw determiner. That's noun. The pirate. And then we have our preposition. Let me make this longer. P with noun phrase, determiner noun, the telescope. Okay. So what is going on with the sentence? So if we looked at it, I'm gonna use a highlighter here. What the biggest difference is V and VP, right? And then we have NP and PP there. Okay. So you can see that's where the branch differentiates. So here in this sentence, if we say Jack Sparrow saw the pirate with the telescope, because they're under the same umbrella here, right? They're under the same category. That means the pirate has the telescope. But here we notice that these two branch from each other. These are two different, or like they're in different branches. We're assuming Jack Sparrow, so Jack has the telescope. So that's why you can see, again, in this second example, why it's considered ambiguous. It's because we don't know who has what. So if we were to come across this kind of example, the best way is to restate the sentence and say something different. You would say, oh, Jack Sparrow saw the pirate using his... Oh, actually, no, that's still ambiguous. Jack Sparrow used his telescope to see the pirate. So if I say it in that order, we know clearly who has a telescope. Jack Sparrow has it. So if we say Jack Sparrow saw the pirate who is using the telescope, we know that we're talking about the pirate has a telescope. So you can see we have to modify the way we say our sentences to tell us clearly who has what. And this is very important in terms of if you're storytelling, if you're talking about like we're making a report to someone, we have to be very clear on who has what, right? So this kind of stuff is very important, and we do have these issues when we're speaking in English because sometimes we forget to clarify who has what. So in that case, just make sure to ask and say, who are you talking about? Who has the telescope? By doing something like by just asking who has what, it just clarifies the situation. All right. Perfect. So I would say that's about time. Do you guys have any questions for me? Language is fun, I would say. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. If not, I would also recommend to drop your questions in the Discord server if you're interested in joining, which I should most definitely grab the link for you. I keep forgetting to do this. there you go. So I just dropped the Discord link in the chat for you guys. So if you want to join and ask questions or engage with other language learners in there as well, feel free to. I would love to hear from you guys and interact with you guys. Next week, I will definitely be teaching some lectures in English for 2 hours max, I think. So depending on how many subjects I can squeeze into 2 hours, that's basically what I'm teaching that day of. So I don't really have a specific number of how many lessons I'll be teaching per stream. It just really depends because some lessons are easier than others, so we might even go up to 10 grammar lessons in one session, or we might even like do 5 or 3 depending on the exercise itself. So yeah, that's my plan for next week, is to definitely introduce grammar. That's one, using the books that I typically teach with, which is called English for Everyone, if you're interested. And maybe I will do the other day. Well, actually, this is what's in my head. I'm thinking the first meeting of the week would be like maybe a fun activity. Like maybe I review a video, how people think about English, what they like, my thoughts on it. Maybe review movies or whatever. I don't know. Something about review or having fun. And then Thursdays. Is it Thursday? Sorry, Wednesdays for me. Thursday for some of you guys. It will definitely be grammar. So I'm just trying to keep it balanced where one day is for fun and it's not related to grammar. It's just anything that I can talk about with you guys. And then the second day of the week is just grammar focus. So something to keep you guys looking forward to. So Claudia says, thank you for today, honey sensei. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you for coming and thank you for staying. You must have woken up really early for this. And I will see you later for our private lessons. Yeah, I would say. Maybe in the future I might even bring like reading, I don't know, let's read Spy X Family for my stream. Waking up early just for you. Aw, thank you, Claudia. I really appreciate that. Don't worry, I'm doing the same for you. So like after today, I'll just work on my lesson plans and then I have to plan for waking up early for you too. So we're meeting in the middle. Yeah. Let's see. Let me see if there's anything else here. Nah, I don't think I have anything else. It's just for questions if you have any. Yeah, I'm gonna see you later. I have to just work on my lesson plan for you guys. We'll see how that's gonna go. So thank you again for joining. Let's see. Thanks for today, teacher. Aw, thank you, Susie. I hope you're doing well, and give Harry a hug for me. I hope he's doing okay. Yeah, so I would say thank you guys for your time. Thank you for joining me. Please sleep properly, honey. Rest well. Gotta go now. See ya. All right, bye, Claudia. Thank you for joining. Thank you so much. So yeah, thank you guys for joining me in today's stream. I know in the near future I am planning for a karaoke stream. For now, I don't really have any friends who want to sing live with me, so I guess I'm singing for like maybe a couple minutes or an hour maybe. I don't know, but I do want to do a celebratory stream for like a lot of social medias where I haven't had the chance to do a celebratory stream. So that's in the plans and in the works. And yeah, I would say that's about it. All right. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining me. I will be streaming again next week. I'm only streaming twice a week because I think I can only handle that schedule for now while still finishing up my masters. I stream every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Initially, they should have been both 6 o'clock, but Mondays I get off school around 6 p.m. so I would not make it on time for my stream. So that's why I pushed it back by an hour. And then Wednesday's perfect for me for 2 hours because I typically have a student to tutor at 8. So this is perfect time for me. So yeah, if any changes happen, I will be announcing it in my Discord server, in my Instagram. If you guys want to follow me there, it's at honeybuns, I believe. Yeah, it should be on my screen. It's at not honeybuns, sorry. It's the Homebody Teacher. So you can just find my stuff there. And of course, if you guys really appreciate watching my videos and if you find them very useful, please consider supporting me through Ko-Fi. I would love to make this job a full-time after I graduate, or part-time too. So yeah, I hope I get to see you guys next week. And while we're waiting until the next stream, I'm probably gonna attempt editing my videos, or like my stream videos, and posting like short videos to post on Instagram and YouTube. So yeah. Other than that, I'll see you guys. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.